Hello, my name is Steve Roth of H&TB, and I'm the project manager for the Blue Line project, which is part of Capital Metro's Project Connect system plan. During this presentation, we will share the project's history and how the Blue Line became the project it is today. Then we will talk through the environmental review process, which includes a discussion of the project's purpose and need, the alternatives that we will carry forward, the resources we will study, and what you can expect for participation opportunities throughout the project. Let's get started with the project history. Capital Metro developed the Project Connect Vision Plan in 2016. In December 2018, the Capital Metro Board of Directors approved the Project Connect Vision Plan, which identified corridors for potential investment in high-capacity transit, in addition to other improvements. The Blue Line was identified as one of the dedicated pathway high-capacity transit corridors. In 2019, the Austin City Council approved the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, which established a policy goal to quadruple the share of commuters who use transit to achieve a 50-50 mode split by 2039. The Project Connect Vision Plan is included as an integral part of the Austin Strategic Mobility Plan, and both plans provide a way forward for addressing the current and future mobility challenges the region faces. Mobility challenges are partially driven by historic and future population growth, with the Austin population projected to double by 2040. These challenges include a lack of mobility options, limited roadway capacity, and increasing travel demand. The Project Connect system map shows the entire proposed future transit vision plan. The system map reflects potential future operations of Blue Line trains traveling on the Orange Line infrastructure between downtown and the North Lamar Transit Center. For the purposes of the environmental review process, however, we will focus on the study area of the Blue Line infrastructure, which is between Republic Square and the airport. In 2019 and 2020, Capital Metro conducted an alternatives analysis for the Blue Line corridor, which used a screening process through which alternatives were defined, evaluated, and refined. This provided information to decision makers and the public that helped the community evaluate costs and benefits and develop a locally preferred alternative that would most effectively maximize the transit investment in the Blue Line corridor. The locally preferred alternative selection is represented by a combination of mode, transit way, and alignment choices that, when combined, meet the purpose and need of the project, are financially feasible, and have strong local support. The Blue Line locally preferred alternative was defined as a light rail transit service that would operate in an 8.2-mile dedicated transitway from Republic Square in downtown Austin on the northern end to Austin Bergstrom International Airport on the southern end. It would operate along portions of the existing Route 20. Up to 11 stations are proposed along the route, and service would operate every 10 to 15 minutes. The Blue Line would feature off-board fare collection, larger stations with level boarding, Americans with Disabilities Act accessibility, and intersection signal prioritization. It would also provide travel time savings over the car in rush hour and provide environmental benefits through a reduction in vehicle miles traveled and greenhouse gas emissions. The locally preferred alternative was unanimously adopted by the Capital Metro Board of Directors and endorsed by the Austin City Council on June 10, 2020. In November 2020, City of Austin voters approved an 8.75-cent tax rate increase to help fund the next phase of implementation for the Project Connect system plan, which enabled the Blue Line locally preferred alternative to move into the next phase of development as the Blue Line project. Now that we've talked through how the Blue Line became the project it is today, we'd like to talk about what's happening now and what will be happening over the next few years. Capital Metro will now begin to develop an environmental document called an Environmental Impact Statement in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act and other regulatory requirements. Looking at the entire project lifecycle, the phase we are in now is the environmental phase, indicated by the large red box. After the environmental phase is complete, the project can move into final design and then construction and eventually testing and operation. For now, we'll focus on the current phase of development for the Blue Line project, development of the Environmental Impact Statement, which is also commonly referred to as the NEPA phase. This phase is the focus of the rest of this presentation. The development of the environmental impact statement helps us learn more about the potential environmental effects of the project, better define the alignment and station location, allows the community to understand the project and guide development, and ensures that the agency is positioned to receive federal funding for the project. The NEPA process involves the following 3 steps: scoping, the development of the draft environmental impact statement, and the development of a combined final environmental impact statement and record of decision. An important part of the scoping step and the purpose of this series of scoping meetings is to provide information to the community about the Blue Line to establish an early and open process for obtaining public and agency input. We will share information about the project and ask for your feedback through multiple comment submission options. There is also a concurrent agency scoping process that allows other transportation partners and agencies like the City of Austin, the Texas Department of Transportation, and others to coordinate and participate in the project scoping step. Following the conclusion of the scoping phase, Capital Metro will begin work on the draft environmental impact statement. The draft environmental impact statement includes the purpose of and need for the Blue Line project, descriptions of alternatives, including the proposed action, discussion of the affected environment, and it will describe any environmental consequences. Public and stakeholder input is critical to the development of the draft environmental impact statement. Capital Metro will bring information to the community and request feedback at regular intervals over the next several years. To complete the environmental review process, the Federal Transit Administration and Capital Metro will prepare a final environmental impact statement, which will respond to comments received on the draft environmental impact statement and include the final transitway options and stations selected for the Blue Line project. FTA will also issue a record of decision that states the proposed actions, summarizes environmental impacts, and describes the measures that Capital Metro will implement to avoid or mitigate environmental impacts. For the Blue Line project, the final environmental impact statement and record of decision will be combined into one final document for approval by FTA. This document will be publicly available for review. Now that we've talked about the NEPA process overall, let's talk in more detail about some key decisions made early in the NEPA process. A key part of the NEPA process is to establish the purpose, need, goals, and objectives for the project. The purpose, need, goals, and objectives are used as a guide for decision-making throughout environmental impact statement development. The project purpose is a summary statement that answers the question, why is Capital Metro proposing the Blue Line project? The project purpose for the Blue Line corridor is to 1, improve high-capacity transit that operates faster and has better reliability. 2, improve connectivity to affordable housing, employment, activity centers, and the airport. And 3, provide links to other future transit corridors. The project's need statements answer the question, what problems are Capital Metro trying to solve with the proposed Blue Line project? The project's need statements demonstrate the specific outcomes associated with the Blue Line project. These include sustainably support Austin's population and economic growth, increase transportation network capacity to meet increasing travel demand, provide better transit options linking affordable housing and jobs, support growth of and connectivity to activity centers, and support Austin Bergstrom International Airport growth in air travel. The goals and objectives for the Blue Line project are based on the goals established for the Project Connect Vision Plan and the project's purpose and need. The goals are high level and mirror the project's needs. The objectives describe how we will meet each goal. The project's goals are equity, which means providing better transit options linking affordable housing and jobs. Reliability, which means connecting employers and employees along the corridor with fast and reliable transit. Support airport growth, which means providing transit options for access to and from the Austin Airport as demand grows over time to serve the needs of air travelers, employees, and all others needing access. Land use and policy, which means connecting activity centers and managing future growth with better transit services. And interoperability and operations, which means ensuring interoperability between the Blue Line project and planned future transportation corridors. Another early aspect of the NEPA process is to establish the alternatives that will be carried forward throughout the environmental study. We will talk about what this means over the next few slides. Throughout the development of the draft environmental impact statement, and as required by NEPA, Capital Metro will study two alternatives, the build alternative and the no action alternative. The no action alternative provides a baseline for evaluating the impacts and benefits of the proposed build alternative and shows us what happens if the Blue Line project does not move forward. The no action alternative is consistent with Capital Metro's June 2018 system changes referred to as CAP remap. The no action or status quo alternative would remain at street level and in mixed traffic throughout the entire corridor. The build alternative would operate in a dedicated transitway. To ensure the alternative has a dedicated transitway, the vertical profile will vary. Vertical profile is the technical term for where the transitway exists above, at, or below street level. We will look at the build alternative in more detail on the next slide. This graphic shows the proposed build alternative in more detail. Each of the circles symbolizes a proposed Blue Line station. The gray shading between the proposed Republic Square station through downtown indicates that the Blue Line would operate in a tunnel. The Blue Line would cross Lady Bird Lake on a new bridge. It would operate at street level between Lady Bird Lake and Metro Center. It would then operate on an elevated structure from US 183 to the Austin Airport. Next, Christy Haven, the Blue Line Project Environmental Lead, will walk us through the environmental resources we will be studying as part of the NEPA process. Christy?
The NEPA process will evaluate the potential effects of the build and no action alternatives to the physical, natural, human, and cultural environments. In the NEPA process, these areas of potential effects are referred to as resources. The environmental topics to be analyzed in the environmental impact statement include resources shown on this slide. Some of these are self-explanatory, but some are less so. Therefore, we wanted to provide some additional details. For example, energy refers to the analysis of construction and operational energy requirements and conservation potential. Noise and vibration refers to the evaluation of the noise and vibration caused by a transit system at nearby residences and other sensitive types of land use. Environmental justice refers to the study of potential disproportionately high and adverse effects on low-income and minority populations. Section 4F refers to the evaluation of impacts to publicly owned parks and recreational facilities, wildlife and waterfowl refuges that are open to the public, and historic sites. Visual and aesthetic refers to the evaluation of how the project is seen by both users and neighbors. So far, we've talked a lot about process. Now we're going to shift to talking about the people. The NEPA process is specifically designed to facilitate coordination, review, and feedback between parties at all levels, from community members to the federal government. The Federal Transit Administration is the federal lead agency, and Capital Metro is the local sponsor agency responsible for implementing the Blue Line project. The City of Austin is a participating agency and project partner. The newly established independent organization called the Austin Transit Partnership is designed to guide the overall Project Connect investment. The Blue Line project would function as part of a local and regional transportation system, and coordination with transportation partners across the system has been and will continue to be critical to project development. The Blue Line project team will work with local, state, tribal nations, and federal agencies throughout the NEPA process to receive input on the purpose and need for the project, the development of design alternatives, and methods to evaluate impacts. On the next few slides, we'll share all the different agencies that the Federal Transit Administration and Capital Metro have invited to participate in the development of the project. The level of involvement for each will be determined as part of the initial coordination. Locally, Various City of Austin departments, school districts, and other entities shown here will be involved in the project. Regional transportation agencies like the Central Texas Regional Mobility Authority and the Capital Area Metropolitan Planning Organization will be involved. Statewide, agencies like the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, the Texas Department of Transportation, and the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department will participate in the project. Coordination with tribal agencies is an aspect of project development as well. National agencies also provide review and feedback for the project, including the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Federal Highway Administration, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agencies. Project Connect has been collaborating with the community throughout the development of the long-term vision plan. Over 77,000 people have contributed to and participated in Project Connect. Project Connect's Community Advisory Committee has met regularly to receive updates on project development and provide feedback to the project team. This committee represents the community's diverse leadership in transportation, transit, affordability, accessibility, and more. The Blue Line Project team will continue to collaborate with these groups and engage with neighborhood associations, businesses, and nonprofit organizations, both generally and on specific aspects of the project. And, of course, you, as members of the community, have a critical role in the project development process. Now we want to review all the different ways you can continue to learn more and provide feedback to the Blue Line Project team. Your feedback is critical now and throughout project development to inform our engineering and environmental work. So please provide your input and share the information with others in your network so that they can also provide input. We will compile and consider input from the scoping process as we finalize this step and move forward with the draft environmental impact statement. Share your feedback with the project team on or before March 5th, 2021. There are several ways to provide your input. You can visit the project website to complete the community questionnaire or submit a comment at projectconnect.com/get-involved. Send an email at blueline@capitalmetro.org. Send your comment via mail at Blue Line Project Team, Capital Metro, 607 Congress Avenue, Austin, Texas, 78701. Call our comment line to leave a verbal comment at 512-369-7774. Community input is an important part of the environmental review process for the Blue Line Project, and we will continue to share information and seek community feedback over the next several years. Stay up to date on Blue Line Project developments. Plan a visit to our community office once it's safe to do so. Join our emailing list by visiting projectconnect.com and subscribing to the newsletter. Follow us on Twitter at CapMetroATX. Like us on Facebook or facebook.com/capitalmetro. And check projectconnect.com regularly for updates. Thank you again for joining this presentation.